otherwise wouldn't receive. But two, and even more importantly, the gospel message is going to be preached to everyone. A kid represented by every one of these boxes. We're going to be at about 340 boxes this year. Some of y'all didn't believe me. I was telling y'all they're coming in. They're coming in, and we just have been tremendously blessed. Miss Frulane and Miss Christie and Kate, the family back there, she rides my bus every day. Y'all hear me talk about my bus stories. Miss Frulane rides my bus. Kate took this on as kind of a ministry of her own a few years back. I think she started with 50. Let's do 50. And then she said, I want to double it and do 100. And then I want to do 150. And then this year she said, I want to do 300. And they brought in 307, which is outstanding. But it's a challenge to the rest of us to jump on board and be a part of this type of thing. So after the service, by the way, at the end of the service, we're going to pray over these because I believe it's extremely important for us to ask the Lord to bless each one of those boxes, specifically the gospel that's going to be preached through each one of those boxes. And then we're going to need some help after the service to carry these out into some vehicles so that they can be brought to Thompson Road Baptist Church. From there, they'll be packaged and inspected. They'll go off to Atlanta in the southern portion of our country. Atlanta is the hub for that, and then they will go all over the world. It's a tremendous thing. If you paid for shipping on yours and you got the scanner thing, you'll be able to follow it as it's updated where it ends up. If you did not do that and you still want to do that, good luck digging yours out of this pile and scanning the right thing, but feel free to scan any one of them and pay that. You have to pay that $10 if you want to do that. Last but not least, if you still want to donate till shipping, you can still do that. We pay $10 a box to ship them off. We've got some funds that have been donated throughout the year that are going towards that, but we could always use more to help complement what's going on in there. So we've got that after church. We've also going to begin to flip this sanctuary from blue to Christmas, right? So if you're specifically able and have a few minutes after church, we need to grab the stuff out of the attic, set the giant Christmas tree up, and I'm sure there's a couple other little things that need to go around. Shouldn't take too terribly long, but that's on the agenda for today. Also, we're going to preach to you. Y'all ready for that? Luke chapter 9 is where we're at today. Luke chapter 9, we're going to talk about a challenge that Jesus gives to his disciples or to his listeners. And as we talk about this passage, I just want to kind of tell you why this is what we're talking about today. If you were here last week, you know that that I mentioned to you that we are nearing the end of this year and beginning a new year. And during those times, there's some opportunities for us as believers or us as people to make changes in our lives, right? For us to say, I'm going to no longer be doing this, but I'm now going to do this. Or there's going to be some changes that I'm going to implement to better who I am as a human, or who I am as a Christian, or who I am as a dad, a husband, a son, a daughter, whatever it is that we occupy in our roles as in our daily lives. But this passage specifically, Jesus is going to call call some disciples into action. When I say disciples today, I'm talking not 12. I'm talking greater disciples, like the others that followed along. We're all following something. We follow all types of different things. We follow people on social media. We follow our favorite TV shows or our favorite sports teams, which, if you're an SEC fan, might have been kind of crazy this weekend. We follow directions, sometimes good and sometimes bad. If we're honest, sometimes we follow the trends of culture, and sometimes we follow the desires of our hearts. We like to believe, or we like to say, that we follow the teachings of Scripture. I say it that way because, it's easy for us to say we follow the teachings of Scripture, but if we're really being honest, a lot of times we know the teachings of Scripture, and we follow them until they conflict with our desires and our preferences. So there's a way that Jesus is going to discuss it in Scripture. He continually offers people an opportunity to follow after him. In Matthew chapter 16, Jesus says this: if anyone wants to come after me, then you must. If you want to come after me, you must take up your cross. Deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow after me. Something's very important about that, about the way that Jesus words that. If you notice when he says, if you want to come after me, he gives the people an option. So some of you might have been in this understanding of, well, we're required to follow Jesus. It's really the only option. Spiritually speaking, it's the only right option. But Jesus doesn't stand above us as a puppet master and require that we do it. What does he do? He offers us the opportunity to follow if you're going to follow. He offers us an opportunity for obedience. And as we follow in obedience, he blesses. As we follow in obedience, he reveals. As we follow in obedience, he expands our opportunity to be used by him. So you might remember the story of the prodigal son. He followed his desires, the desires of his own heart, and eventually it got him in trouble. He was led far away from God. He was led far away from the things that he loved. He was led far away even from the things that he believed or he knew to be true about God. And this is what this is what the enemy can do to us, right? When we choose not to follow God, we always follow the things of the world. We're going to follow one or the other. So when we choose to follow the things of the world instead of God, it always leads us further away from God. It always leads us to a point where we're away from the things that we know, we're away from the things that we love, we're away from the things that even we believe. I want to read a part of Luke chapter 9 today. I didn't tell you that already, so if you're looking for it, it's Luke chapter 9. It seems to be an account of the same teaching that Jesus spoke in Matthew chapter 16 when he says, if anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow after me. If you're familiar with the Gospels, you'll know that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are written about Jesus and about Jesus' lifestyle. And in many cases, the stories of the Gospels overlap. So there's times where you'll see one author speak about a story, and then later on you'll see another author speak about it. And sometimes those overlapping stories have slight differences. And the reason that one reason that those overlapping stories might have slight differences is because the way that one author experienced the story might be different than the way another person experienced the story. For example, if I were to see Jesus do a miracle and Jake were to see Jesus do a miracle and we were both to explain to you what just happened, he might explain it slightly different than I would explain it, because he saw it through his eyes and he experienced it through his filters and his lifestyle and his passions, and the things that connected most to him might not have been the same exact things that connected most to me. So when you see the stories and they're not quite the same, it doesn't point to an inaccuracy in Scripture. It points to different viewpoints, different eyes that put their experiences on paper. See the difference? See what we're talking about there? So this passage, Luke chapter 9, is a similar passage, if not the same story that's found in Matthew chapter 16, but Luke gives a slightly different context to it. Luke's going to add